Acho, is it fair to criticize Draymond for his podcast?
I'm so excited about this show, Sel. It is completely fair to criticize Draymond Green for his podcast during the NBA Finals at that.
Yeah.
Like, what you doing, Draymond? It's the biggest game of your life. You need to minimize all distractions as much as possible. Family can't minimize that. Draymond Green, you are going to be a father. You are going to be a significant other. But do you need to be a podcast host right now? No. You've taught me several things over the course of this show, and you know I quote you several times, but no greater quote has Marcellus Wiley brought to the earth than this. No one cares what you're doing.
Until you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing.
Beautifully said. No one cares what you are doing until you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Draymond, truth be told, we don't care that you have a podcast when you're balling. But now that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, yes, we care what you're doing, Draymond. And it's not a fault of our own. We would be the dummies as fans, as analysts, as Steve Kerr, your head coach. We would be the dummies to not assess why you sucked so much in Game 3. Why do I say we would be the dummies? Because if Draymond Green played as atrociously as he did in Game 3, and we did not try to assess the why, then it might happen again in Game 4.
Okay.
Now, are we reaching by blaming it on a podcast? Sure. But you got to be honest.
Okay.
We always try to assess what meets our eyes first whenever there's an issue. So you go to the doctor's office with a headache. The first thing they're going to say, have you had excessive screen time staring at something?
Okay.
Do you wear glasses? The first things that a doctor is going to do is assess the thing that's easiest to assess. They're not instantly going to say, hey, let's get you a CT scan. No. The first thing they're going to do whenever there is something performing poorly, in this case, your brain, is assess what is easiest to assess. Now, might Draymond Green's central nervous system be off, and maybe that's why he played so poorly in Game 3? Sure. But that's way harder to assess than, firstly, what meets the eyes. Hey, how much sleep did you get last night? You've been distracted by the fans. You've been distracted by your family. Are you distracted by your podcast? So I do not fault us, nor do I fault the media, the person who asked that question, for assuming it might be a podcast issue. Because that's our job to make sure that it isn't the thing that's right underneath our nose. I got a lot of thoughts.
Yes.
I'm going to stop here, and then I'll pick up later.
Oh, I love it. You got us rolling. You got us running. And I love what you said there. My experience disagrees with what you said there. Let's just say, initially, they're not connected. We should not be criticizing Draymond Green for a podcast based on his performances. And that's what this is. We're basically trying to get indicators to why is Draymond not performing up to Draymond's level in this series so far. Let me remind everyone, Draymond has fouled out in 2 of the 3 games in this series. Let me remind everyone, Draymond hasn't made more than 2 field goals in any game this series. Let me remind everyone, he hasn't scored double-digit points in a single game this series. So when you know that, you're trying to figure out why that is.
Yes, sir.
Here's the problem. There's this thing between order and chaos called reality. We all have played a game before, Acho and I, and athletes understand this. You can't predict performance. All you can do is put yourself in the greatest moment of preparation for said performance. Draymond is doing that. What got Draymond here is what's going to get Draymond there. So never go into a place where all of a sudden, let me take away some things because I'm not performing well. That's how I'll perform well. That's an old mindset and an old model of how to focus.
Okay.
Old school focus is you play the sport and you take your butt home and all you do is eat and sleep and come back and play that sport, right?
Sure.
And if you did anything else, let's go back to the 80s or the 90s, you did anything else, you're not focused. You're distracted. Then we came up with the new model, which these players play under, which is, nah. Focus is having a bunch of things you have to deal with. LeBron James.
Sure.
I own a company. I have my own podcast. I have my own podcast company. I'm in movies, blah, blah, blah. Shaquille O'Neal, et cetera, everyone. I know what to prioritize. And that's why I'm not distracted, because that's how I focus. So old school focus, 1 dot on the wall. Draymond, basketball. New school focus, you got 1,000 things on the wall, but you know how to prioritize them. What Draymond Green right now is suffering from is everyone's misperception. Why is Draymond not playing well? Well, you guys have skipped a step to initially who Draymond is. Draymond has a limited skill set, which makes him have to be supremely focused, supremely confident, and sometimes he has to toe the line. So never question if Draymond Green is focused, because that's his only superpower. What keeps Draymond being the Draymond Green that we all respect is that focus. Now to question it because of his performance, you guys skipped the step. You know what that step is? He has a limited skill set.
Sure, he does have a limited skill set, but if Draymond's superpower is focus, and he is doing things that might detract from his focus, then we need to start detracting from the things that he's doing, a.k.a. podcasts, a.k.a. unnecessary elongated pressers, a.k.a. taking shots at old school Celtics former finals MVPs. Draymond, if your focus is your superpower, then hone in on your superpower. Don't start getting so many things that are going to undermine your superpower. I digress.
Okay, I'm with you.
I'm about to say something that will either change everyone's opinion on this Draymond situation or at least enlarge their opinion on the Draymond situation. The greatest football player currently playing, at least based upon MVPs, is Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, sir.
Aaron Rodgers is not overly active on social media, nor is he overly active with the media. Greatest basketball player currently playing right now is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis is not overly active on social media, nor is he entirely active on social media. One American broke a world record during last year's Olympics in track and field. That was Sydney McLaughlin. Sydney McLaughlin is not overly active on social media, nor was she at all active during the Olympics on social media. Greatest basketball player of all time, many would say Michael Jordan. Social media did not exist, so he was not active on social media. Greatest basketball player of this generation, LeBron James. In 2013, he started to instill zero dark 30 when he got into the playoffs. Not active on social media and went to 6 consecutive finals after he instilled his zero dark 30 playoff mode activation. What does that mean? The greatest at their sports are not overly active on social media or with the media. But Draymond Green, you are. Coincidence, causation, correlation. You all decide. I'm simply presenting the data. If I look at Aaron Rodgers, if I look at Giannis, if I look at Sydney McLaughlin in track and field, if I look at LeBron James when he went to 6 consecutive finals after instilling zero dark 30, if I look at Michael Jordan because social media did not exist, the greatest at their sports are not overly engaged with the media, yet Draymond Green is. I am not saying that it is the causation, but at a minimum, there is a direct correlation, and we have to bring to everybody's eyesight the correlation between Draymond Green's excessive activity, unnecessary activity, and his subpar performances.
Well stated again. But there are some false narratives that support what you just stated.
Oh, wait.
When you walk out with confirmation bias, all you're looking for is what you want to see. So when you look at Draymond Green, you may say, see game 3 and you're talking to the media and you're doing your podcast. Oh, Draymond, you're distracted. Forgetting that Draymond made second team all defense this year with a podcast. Forgetting that Draymond Green in game 2 was rewarded by most of the media as the catalyst to why they won game 2. His defensive intensity, him out there playing flag or tackle football, whatever you want to call it. Draymond Green was the guy that everyone heralded as saying, you bring that guy, that's how the Warriors can win this series. And then one performance later, but still podcast, one performance later, all of a sudden, we got a different narrative. This happened to me, and the reason I say why I disagree with you is not because academically I disagree with you. It's through my experience. I used to think the same way. And then I told you the story before. Let's go right now. 1997, when I first got drafted to the Buffalo Bills, 4 years, $2.1 million. Let me tell you where that .1 went. To DJ equipment. Boy, I got all the DJ equipment I could. And I was a DJ in 1997. Now everybody's a DJ. 1997, it was a rare thing out there. It was Clark Kent, Jazzy Jeff, Red Alert. It's like, that's it. Kid Capri and me. It was 5 DJs. I was doing concerts. I was doing everything. Stadiums, conventions, whatever it might be. I DJ'd all the way to the Pro Bowl. I DJ'd all the way to All-Pro status. I DJ'd all the way to franchise contracts, all this big dog on campus, and I was DJing. And every owner that I played for, hey, Marcellus, Friday, I'm having the owner's party. Would you like to DJ? And as soon as I started coming down the hill, you know what happened? Everyone started to blame the DJing. When it wasn't the DJing, it was me and my limited skill set as it started to erode. Draymond Green, a little longer in the tooth. Draymond Green already starting off with a limited skill set. How come we skipping that step? That Draymond Green never was fully activated physically, so he always has to be locked in mentally. Now y'all gonna question his only superpower that got him here? To me, that's a false narrative.
Well, I'm questioning it in part because Draymond questioned it. Remember, post-game, Draymond said maybe he was listening too much to the fans because Draymond Green got that tech in game 2.
Okay.
I believe that was when he got that tech, and that was when there was so much questioning around should he have been ejected in game 2.
But he balled game 2.
He did ball game 2.
Draymond.
But what Draymond said was going into game 3, he was fearful of getting an early tech because he had listened to so much of the fans and was listening to the refs, so he did not play his game. So even Draymond has admitted he let too much of the outside noise get inside. But I want to address your DJing analogy for the first time in my 18 months of doing this show.
Let's go.
What's your favorite cheat meal?
Cheat meal?
Yes, sir.
Hawaiian Punch, Cheetos, and probably some ribs.
Hawaiian Punch, Cheetos, and ribs. Call it that. Do you monitor how often you have that cheat meal? Maybe like, once a month, once a week?
Oh, no, I try not to, but it happens.
It happens. When you were a kid, did you ever monitor how often you had Hawaiian Punch, Cheetos, and ribs?
No, it happened too often as a kid.
Because when you are younger, you can afford to do certain things that as you get older, you should probably get rid of.
Yeah.
So I will not say that your DJing did not affect your career. Just like I won't say Draymond's podcasting isn't affecting him during the course of the season. As Marcellus Wiley got older, Marcellus Wiley had to get more introspective. Maybe I should stop eating Cheetos, fruit punch, and ribs because my metabolism is slowing down. So what I could do as a youth, Big Dog can't do as an adult. What Draymond could do during the regular season, Draymond can't do in the finals because as you get older, your metabolism slows down. And as the season grows, then the defense and the opponents get tougher and get stiffer. I do, in fact, think, Sel, that as you do progress and as you do ascend, you do have to shed some weight.
Yeah.
What got you here will take you there, but you know this when you climbing a mountain, when you're doing X, Y, and Z, you do have to start to shed some of that weight. I think that Draymond needs to take all of the heat that he's taking because it's the finals. I don't want to see no podcast. I want you ready for the game on game day. Please.
Okay, I can't subscribe to that. I got a little kid that's playing sports right now. I got 2 kids following him. I had one already finished playing sports. Draymond Green, the first 3 rounds of the postseason. No one had an issue with Draymond Green's performance, and no one had an issue with Draymond Green's podcast. As soon as you have an issue with his performance, now all of a sudden you want to change his mental makeup. You want to change his mental diet. Here's the problem. Acho, when it's a big game, all of a sudden do you change your meal? Or do you eat the same meal that you've eaten all the way up to that big game? I've seen it go both ways. I've seen some guys, this is a big game. I got to really carb load. Then they go out there, man, I don't know about today. I'm a little bloated. I'm a little consumed with that because you tried to do something bigger when it's a big game. Coach always says you want to do the big things, do all the little things. What are the little things to Draymond? He literally goes home after a presser, goes in his hotel room, and talks into a camera. Versus him calling his boy, FaceTiming him, and debriefing the game. This could even be spun as a positive as Draymond Green. Draymond Green, after a game, if you're the guy who's like, I didn't play well, and you keep all that in versus, let me call my boy. Or let me talk about what I did. Let me address it. Let me not run from it. Let me just look it in the mirror. That could be a positive. But all Draymond is doing is the same exact thing that he's done that made Draymond great. But now, since there's a slip in one performance, game 3 only, let's be real, maybe game 1, all of a sudden we saying the podcast got to go. You better ball Draymond game 4 or else that podcast and Colin, y'all.